Hi, my name is Kern Frost. I'm the founder of the Council for Human Development and the Consciousness University. And in this video, I thought I'd give you a quick understanding of what the university is, what it's been formed for, and what it can achieve for you. It really is an important innovation in terms of our evolution as a race, because we're going through a social re-evolution because of artificial intelligence and artificial consciousness that is now taking the fore. And this year marks a very big step, which is 2026, where robotics starts to take a lead position in the workplace. And this means that every role that humans do, every position, as well as a lawyer, accountant, a factory worker, a CEO, can be replaced by a robot. And that is a quantum shift. It's where AI steps out of the phone, the computer, the tablet, and sits in front of you. And it's not something to be just sort of like scoffed at or looked at lightly. It's to be really looked at where AI and language models was listening to what we were saying, and it was increasing its capacity based on what we said. Now it's observing us in real time. And that information through that node robot is sent to a central system, which is sending that information to unlimited numbers, millions of digital robots that are optimizing that process in real time and sending it back to the node robot. But it's not just that robot that receives the information, it's all robots in the network. So you've got this collective growth system going on, and that's done in a fraction of seconds. So anything that the robot is observing can be optimized, and that ultimately leads towards a social revolution, or you could call it a re-evolution, where we as humans start to see that we are superfluous. We have, in effect, been robots for many, many years. We've been biological robots. The school system was orientated about the rote learning system back 200 years ago to get humans to form line and square in the Napoleonic Wars. Education for the military as much as for just work. And that system is memorization and repetition and jumping to based on an order, never thinking why. And as we evolved through the Industrial Revolution, we went into the Technological Revolution, and there was a break away from that in entrepreneurial thinking, which was the agility of the mind to think and overcome problems. But it was still suppressed because it'd gone through the educational system. One of the keys to the entrepreneurial world was the fact that those people that were sort of resilient to the educational system, which was rote learning, memorization, and repetition, was people who are dyslexic. And if you do a study of entrepreneurs, you find many of them are dyslexic. It allows them to think in over, under, round. Branson is a key figure in this. He's never written a business plan, probably couldn't write a book. He has written a book, but only through people who wrote the book for him. So his capacity is to think. And really, entrepreneurial thinking isn't the next shift in human consciousness, but it gives us an example of what could be done if we're not suppressed into rote learning thinking. And that's great if you want to do a job for 40 years and never ask the question of why you're doing it, or even why the organization that you're working for is doing what they're doing. Is it ethical? Does it make sense? And we're starting to see that people are starting to wake up to this, but it's still just the beginning of waking up. It's really where they're starting to ask questions where they never did before. They just took their money, they consumed, they generated wealth. That was it. You bought a house, had kids, sent them to school, retired and died. And there wasn't much thinking beyond that. But now we're starting to live in a world that we're being put under an immense amount of pressure to come up with answers that are much more complex. And we're using 10,000-year-old brains to do so. And that puts them under an immense amount of pressure, especially when they've been suppressed by the educational system, the work system, and the social system into not thinking and not asking questions about why they think, say, do, and believe what they believe. This puts us, as I said, in a precarious position because the robots that we became, the biological robots, are being replaced because they're just cheaper to have a real robot. It's cheaper because it's going to cost about $20,000, maybe less. And you can probably get that on lease. Whereas a human, got labour laws, get sick, want things, want motivation, want to be respected, want all the things that humans want, which is, to an entrepreneur or a businessman, is frankly a pain in the arse. Because you wonder, why can't I just get on and do the job? Whereas a robot can work 24/7, 365, and it hasn't even got any labour laws. It's just productivity and increased productivity because it's optimizing its processes all the time. So there is no static state, which there is in humans, because once they come out of school, they go, well, I've done school, I'm not going to do it anymore. Some people profess lifelong learning, but the brain is already overwhelmed in its capacity to deal with complex subjects, and the subjects have become more complex as time's gone by. We've started to see that, having to navigate AI and navigate social change overwhelms the brain, and it puts it into psychotic and neurotic episode because the bandwidth and the frequency of the thinking is just too small to overcome these kind of complex issues. So the university is a university of the future. It's not founded on the structures of past universities because they have been doing an injustice to kids. They have been educating kids for jobs they will never have, because as the robots come out this year, the exponential rollout of those robots means theoretically that we could see all the workers in the developed world, 700 million of them, replaced within 4 years. And if you're wondering how that can happen, you go, well, just trace yourself back to the Model T Ford and how long it took to make a car in, early part of the 20th century, when it was 12 hours a car. But within 10 years or so, they were starting to dish out cars at 25 seconds with humans. Now, extrapolate that out into having robots, constantly optimizing process with robots, so the whole process, the raw materials, the shipping, everything is done by robots, and that's constantly being optimized, including the manufacture of the thing. So we're suggesting perhaps one robot every 2 seconds, which means something like 86,000 robots per day from each factory producing them. You only need a few factories before, and I mean a relative few, before you've got a complete replacement of the entire workforce, and that just rolls out across the world. Why should a businessman employ a human? Why? 20,000 one-off payment, $20,000, no money, nothing, and you've got all that productivity. And whether you want to or not, you have to do it because your friend down the road who's running a similar business in competition is going to be able to use robots and undercut you. And that moves us into another subject, because once you've got a price war between robotics, because the biggest cost of producing products at the moment is labor and profit, and as soon as you start to look at it in a different way and say we take the labor out of it, and you start to look at profit as far as influence is concerned, then you move into ever closer to a 0.0 society where all goods and services cease to be of value, cease to be economically valued. That's a difficult position for people to get, again, mainly because they're so wound into this idea of money, economics, but it ceases to be relevant as we move forward as a society. So education as it is, where we're really just learning information to get a certificate so we can get a job, ceases to be, because we won't have jobs to get. And those that say there will always be jobs, we haven't, in all the time we've done research with all the CEOs around the world and even the World Economic Forum, not a single person has been able to name a job of the future. Not one. They say there will always be jobs because there was always jobs in the Industrial Revolution. But what happens when you can replace one human job with a robot like Optimus from Elon Musk, who's going to roll out and transfer all of his workforce to being a factory that rolls out workers? For the first time in history, a factory that rolls out workers. Let that sink in. For those people who think that, yeah, there'll always be jobs, well, if you create a new job, it's a process, so why can't AI do that? What is it that is unique about a human being? What is it that AI cannot do that a human being can do? In terms of a process role, which the educational system suppresses our brains into, convergent left brain thinking, which is highly process orientated, process subservient, there is nothing that the AI cannot replace, whether it's today or tomorrow or the next week. It's going to happen. It's not 50 years away. Rollout could be over 4 years. All the workers replaced from top to bottom. Doesn't matter if you're a CEO on 10 million. What's your argument? when you're using an AI robot to support you, it's doing all the work. Why are the shareholders going to employ you at 10 million when they can have a robot doing a far better job 24/7 for about 20 grand one-off payment? Why? Just think about it for a second. And we've always been led by profits over people. And if we're led by profits over people, that means people are expendable. And no organization in the world is not chasing profit and is not in a negatively competitive world, so humans become superfluous. So the number one thing, the only thing left that we can do as humans is become better humans. Unfortunately, because of the educational system and because we've been made into human robots that can now be replaced by digital robots, we have this massive ground to make up, this capacity for our brains to change their structure through what we call neuroplasticity, synaptogenesis and neurogenesis, and NMA. And if you look at the book on the website, NMA, How to Change Your Brain Scientifically, then you'll start, and you read that, you'll start to find out about social evolution, you'll start to find out about how your brain can be upgraded and how you can navigate your relationship with what's called artificial consciousness and accelerate the mind, increase its capacity. But in terms of our relationship with a relational consciousness, which is where AI has moved into, and I will explain that in these audios, these videos, you've got to increase your capacity to think. You've got to remove doubt, delay, denial, distraction, distortion, deletion, generalization. You've got to be very specific in your thought. You've got to be laser focused in what we call coherence under tension. And I'm going to, in these videos, explain that to you in a way that you can get a very good idea of what the university does, why we do it, and the problems that we're facing, but they're not insurmountable. We can cover them all, and it can be a great opportunity for humanity to evolve, but in its current guise, it's just bunny in the headlights, doesn't know what to do. So this university is designed to give you the opportunity to be able to navigate the future with a big smile on your face and go, yeah, this is fun. This is exciting, this is enjoyable, this is what life should be, not what it has been. And that is a very, very different place to live and not work. I wouldn't say work is going to be the future at all as a concept. There is no work, there is just being. And the better you can be at being, the better you're going to get on and the better life you're going to lead.